Welcome to This Explainer. Have you ever stared at a government solicitation and just felt completely overwhelmed by all the acronyms, the strict rules, and those really tight deadlines? Well, if so, you are in exactly the right place. Today, we're demystifying the city's procurement process. We're going to break down this whole process using info straight from standard operating procedures and vendor guides, so you can see exactly how the city buys what it needs. By the time we're done, you'll be ready to submit much stronger, fully compliant bids and proposals, putting you in the absolute best position to win some reliable government contracts. Here is our roadmap for today. We've got 6 key sections: a procurement process overview, solicitation methods, responsive versus responsible, preparing a complete response, common vendor mistakes, and finally, the evaluation and award process. Let's get right into it. Section 1, Procurement Process Overview. We're going to start by looking at the life cycle of a city contract from the outside in. This step-by-step path maps out literally every single purchase the city makes. First, a city department figures out they have a need and they secure the funding for it. Second, the purchasing division actually issues the solicitation. Third, vendors, like you, submit your responses. Fourth is the city's evaluation of those responses. Fifth, an award approval is made, which sometimes even requires city council consent. And finally, the 6th step is contract execution. But hey, here's a massive takeaway before we go any further. A recommendation for an award is absolutely not an authorization to start working. You have to receive written authorization, like a formal purchase order, before a single hour of work begins. Okay, moving on to Section 2, Solicitation Methods. Let's understand the rules of the game. What's really interesting here is how the city's requirements totally change depending on how they ask for your business. You're going to see 4 main acronyms. First is the RFQ, or Request for Quotes. They use this when needs are clear, usually for purchases between $5,000 and $100,000, and the award just goes to the lowest responsive and responsible quote. Next up is the ITB, the Invitation to Bid. This is a more formal process for when specs are crystal clear, they expect competition, and price is the main differentiator. Just like the RFQ, it goes to the lowest responsive and responsible bidder. Then we have the RFP, Request for Proposals, which is a whole different ballgame. The city uses this when they need a tailored solution and want to evaluate things beyond just price, like your technical approach or your experience. So here, the award is based on the overall best value to the city. Finally, there's the RFQC, Request for Qualified Contractors. This is used to pre-qualify a pool of vendors based purely on qualifications and past performance before price is ever even considered. That brings us to Section 3, Responsive versus Responsible. This is absolutely the core of a winning bid. This concept causes so many preventable disqualifications, so let's break it down. Think of being responsive as following a baking recipe exactly. You have to include all the right ingredients, follow the steps, and get it in the oven on time. If you forget the flour, well, the cake fails. That's responsiveness. Responsibility, on the other hand, proves you are actually a capable chef with a clean, well-equipped kitchen. It means you have the real-world skills, the licensing, and the history to pull the job off. To win a contract, you literally have to be both. So let's define these a bit more formally. A responsive submission means you materially followed the instructions and included every required form and document by the exact deadline. And I mean exact. If you miss a required signature or if you hit submit even 1 single minute late, your bid is considered non-responsive. The city will reject it, and it won't matter at all how amazing your price was. On the flip side, we have the responsible vendor. This explains why the lowest price only wins if the city can actually verify you can do the job. A responsible vendor has the integrity, proper licensing, insurance capacity, and financial resources to fully perform the work. The city is going to do their homework here. They'll check your business standing and department status to make sure you're a safe, responsible partner before handing over a contract. All right, Section 4, Preparing a Complete Response. This is the action phase. Now that we know the rules, let's build a bulletproof submission. Treat this checklist as your golden rule. Read the solicitation carefully and literally check off every single item. You've got to complete all forms and provide required signatures. Your pricing needs to be clear and in the exact format they asked for. You must include any mandatory certifications, like the E-Verify affidavit, which is a big work authorization requirement in Georgia. Don't forget your licenses, acknowledging all official addenda, and tossing in any specific supporting documents requested in the scope of work. Now, I want to pause on one specific requirement because it trips up a lot of newer vendors: the bid bond. When it's applicable, this is a 5% financial security requirement that protects the city if a bidder refuses to actually honor their bid. If a bid bond is required, it has to be accompanied by the power of attorney and the proper bid certifications to actually be valid. So definitely don't miss that step if you see it requested.
So picture this. You're reviewing all these documents, and you realize you need some clarification. Or maybe something in the scope is just confusing. What exactly should you do?
Well, first off, go to the pre-bid meetings and site visits. They are amazing opportunities to see the actual field conditions and really grasp the scope. Second, ask your questions early and strictly before the stated deadline. Third, and please hear me on this one, you must review and question contract terms before your submission. Never, ever wait until after you win the award to try and negotiate standard city terms. It just doesn't work. Finally, rely only on official written answers.
And that brings us to addenda. The crucial point here is that any verbal answers you get, they are totally non-binding. You have to rely entirely on written addenda. These are the official written changes, clarifications, or answers from the city. You not only need to read them, but you have to explicitly acknowledge that you received them in your final submission, or else you risk being thrown out for being non-responsive.
Let's move to Section 5, Common Vendor Mistakes. These are the major pitfalls to avoid.
We see some really fantastic bids get tossed out over simple administrative errors. Avoid these deal breakers at all costs. Late submissions, strictly rejected. No exceptions. Missing documents or signatures are immediate red flags. Failing to read the scope will just lead to bad pricing. Ignoring addenda, we just talked about. Including unauthorized exceptions to city terms will definitely disqualify you. And lastly, contacting city staff outside the official process. If you try to reach out to a department director or call the mayor to pitch your services, it actually compromises fair competition and can get you disqualified. Keep all communications strictly through the designated purchasing division contact.
We've made it to Section 6, the evaluation and award process. Let's look at the finish line.
So what happens after you hit submit? The city filters every response through a really rigorous sequence. First is the timeliness check. Did you beat the clock? Next is the responsiveness review. Are all your forms there? Then comes the responsibility verification to check those licenses and background details. Only after you survive those hurdles do they actually apply the evaluation criteria. Fifth, the award recommendation goes through approvals, meaning purchases over $200,000 have to go all the way to the city council. And finally, the contract is fully executed. Let's zoom in on that evaluation step because it really depends on the solicitation method. If it's an ITB or an RFQ, evaluators are looking strictly at your bottom line price. Lowest priced, responsive, and responsible bidder takes the win. But if it's an RFP or an RFQC, they're actually scoring your technical approach, your past experience, your staff, and your schedule based on published criteria to find the true best overall value for the city. Okay, huge warning right here. I literally cannot stress this enough. Even if you get a notice of intent to award or some project manager calls and tells you that you're the recommended vendor, never start work or spend a dime until you have a fully executed contract and a written authorization to proceed, like a formal purchase order. If you do work without that, you are doing it entirely at your own financial risk. Let's wrap this up with a rapid-fire review of our golden rules for winning these municipal contracts. Read the whole solicitation early. Follow the instructions exactly as they are written. Ask your questions before the deadline. Review those addenda. Don't throw in unapproved exceptions. Include every single required document, and for sure, submit on time. The reality is, the city genuinely wants you to compete successfully. They want to protect public funds, and you want to grow your business. By understanding this process, you aren't just guessing anymore. You know exactly how it all works. So what about your next submission? Is it going to be the one that launches your business into a whole new tier of government contracts? Or is it going to get disqualified over a single missing signature? That choice is entirely up to you. Thanks so much for joining me on this explainer, and best of luck on your next bid.